All right, everybody, welcome to Let's Get Deep Bible Study. This Friday, we're going to be going over Exodus 7 and 8. So we're going to start at 7, verse 1. Now, when Yahuwah spoke to Moses in Egypt, he said to him, I am Yahuwah. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you. But Moses said to Yahuwah, since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That was the last part of 6. So last week we ended off with, the back and forth that Moses was doing and how this first Exodus is a preview for us to use wisdom when Yah said he's going to do a second Exodus for us as he's calling his children, the scattered Israelites that are all over the world, to be regathered and to look at how the first Exodus played out, to see so we can have wisdom and understanding and some understanding and knowledge of how this second was going to play out, to understand where are you going to fall in this second Exodus. And so Moses just got done being basically berated by his own brethren, the Israelite overseers, because the overseers were now being got reprimanded by Pharaoh because of the other Israelites who were slaves, because they weren't working fast enough, and because Pharaoh was trying to make it hard on them for wanting their freedom in Yah. And so again, Moses reverts back to what he said in some previous chapters, where he was telling the Most High, you need to choose somebody else because I can't speak properly. You need to choose somebody else because I have failing lips. And basically, a word of encouragement is Yah is going to do all that he needs to do with you with what you already have. And so it is us who have to get over the lack of confidence, the lack of faith. And it's not your lack. He doesn't punish you for your lack of faith, but he will constantly remind you, it is me who appoints man. It is me who has called you. It is me who said that you can do this. It is our flesh that lies against the word that Yah has put in our heart, that has put in our mind. He said that we could do all things, but then our flesh and the lies of the enemy tell us you can't speak properly, so it's probably not best if you do it. And Yah is here to speak against everything our flesh wants to stand for, even in our lack of confidence. And so just want to kind of give a recap of a little bit of that. So 7 verse 1. Then Yahuwah said to Moses, see, I have made you like Elohim to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and with mighty acts of judgment, I will bring out my divisions, my people, the Israelites. So I want to pause there and get into some of the notes. So we talked about this last week about how Yah saves his people, and how again he repeated to Moses that Yah saying to Moses, I'm making you like Elohim, and Aaron's going to be your prophet, because Yah didn't need Aaron, but Moses, because of his lack of faith, was like, I can't do it. So Yah was like, okay, well, since you're struggling with your faith right now, I'm going to send somebody else who I know is confident in their speech. But because of this added person, now I'm about to have to redesign the order, because Yah just wanted to use Moses to say, hey, you go before Pharaoh and you speak. But because of Moses's lack of confidence in his speech and in his tongue and in his way with his words, he kept doubting that. So Yah, in his grace and his mercy, meeting us where we are, he sent help, he sent aid. And now he's saying, okay, Moses, I made you to be like Elohim. I made you to be my representation in the face of all of the Israelites and in Pharaoh. But now, since you don't want to speak, you're going to be like Elohim, and Aaron's going to be your prophet. Because when the prophets speak,
you on?
No, everybody. So we know when Yahuwah speaks, when he raises up a prophet, the prophet already knows who their Elohim is. So it's like there's Yahuwah, and then the prophet speaks. But because of Moses' lack of confidence, now Yahuwah is saying, you're gonna be like, there's me, you're gonna be like me, and Aaron's gonna be your mouthpiece, And so just wanted to give that picture of what that looked like, and why Yahuwah made that a point to say that 2 times in his word, to let Moses know the order of things, and also to let Aaron know the order of things. Okay, so it says that he made that Pharaoh's heart was going to be hardened. So I broke down the word hardened, and obviously it means to be hard, to be severe, and to be fierce, to be harsh, to make stiff and to make stubborn. So a lot of times in our lives when we're seeking Yah and our hearts have been softened and we're trying to speak to family or friends or just people around us, right? There's this sense of, it's not even that they don't want to hear, there's an adamant, a stiff or a fierce reaction to the word of truth that you're speaking. It's not like, oh, I hear you, but I just don't like, I just don't want to like be concerned with it. It's an adamant, like you say the truth and the reaction is hardness. And so we know that this is a spirit. We talked about this last week, the spirit of rebellion, the spirit of you don't even want to consider. And when you have that kind of heart posture of stiff-neckedness, it's not even that you can't hear, is that your only response when you have a hard heart is to be offended and to then I guess, project your harshness, your stiff-neckedness, your disdain towards the person who's speaking the truth to you. And so Pharaoh has this really, really, this visceral reaction. And we saw that his heart was so hard. He's like, I'm going to make it harder on you. I'm going to take the straw away, but you still got to meet your quota. I'm still going to beat you. I'm going to be aggressive in my refusal to hear the word. But Pharaoh will not hearken, or he will not obey. He will not shema. And then Yah says, I will lay my hand on Egypt to bring forth, or to Yasa. So a lot of y'all know I'm writing that book, Stage of Surrender. This is the third step of coming out, which is to bring you out. He's like, I'm going to gather. And then my translation here, it said divisions, right? But there's another translation in my, I think it's my KJV. It says my armies, and that's the word in Hebrew. It says my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So this part was kind of like amazing to me, because when it says I will bring out my divisions, that word breaks down to literal armies, Saba. Like we say, like Yahuah Zavawot, or Yahuah, the host of armies. So Yah saying that Israel, my people, they're not just my children, they're not just my people, they're not just my firstborn, they are also my army. And so I need us to understand, when Yah says he's going to lay his hand on Egypt, when Yah says he's going to lay his hand on a nation, it's saying, I'm laying my hand on because I'm about to judge it. You don't want Yah's hand to be laid on you, because that's judgment. We want to be put into the hand of Yah so he can cover us and heal us. But if he said, I'm about to lay my hand on you, that is judgment language. So he's saying, I'm going to, Yah's like, this is an active work that Yah's doing to bring us out. He's saying, I'm going to stretch out. This is not lazy. This is very, very active. He's going to lay his hand on Egypt to bring forth. I'm going to judge. So basically saying, I'm going to judge Egypt to bring you out because you are my army. And so the connection to this is, we're his army. So he's saying that we're going to go forth because we're leaving. But in this going forth, you need to know that this means it's going to wage war. It's going to start a fight, because we are serving in the Most High's army. We are his servants. We are his assembly. We are here to fight and to perform for the good work that Yah has called us to do. And so being his child, being a child of Yasharel, being part of his divisions, being a part of Yah's army, our mindset needs to be understood that we are by default going to war. There's no way around warfare. There's nowhere around fighting. And I'm not talking about physical fighting, because once we know the story of Exodus, they didn't fight the Egyptians, right? There was no physical combat. But the way that Yah is going to lay his hand on Egypt is going to be in direct connection with us. And I want to give another scripture for this. In Jeremiah 51:20, Yahuah is saying to Jeremiah the prophet, being the mouthpiece, saying, you are my battle axe. He's talking to Israel. He's saying, you are my battle axe and my weapon of war. For you, he's talking to Israel, for you will break in pieces the nations, and with you I will destroy kingdoms. And we're just like, whoa. what's going on. Yah saying in Exodus, we're his armies. He's saying in Jeremiah that we're his battle axe, we're his weapon. We're going to break in pieces the nations. But if we understand how Yah uses us being scattered is part of Yah's perfect design to be able to judge all the nations in righteousness, to see who he stands with, not us being in rebellion, but when we're standing in righteousness, when we're seeking his face, when we're drawing all nations unto him because we are being a nation full of priests, if those nations then rebel against the word that of Yah that's coming out of our mouth, they by default are attacking Yah. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that like
Yes.
what I'm saying is
I think that's the pressure that we're feeling in our lives and in our families right now. We're because you're saying the nations or whatever, but that's right in our house. That's close proximity relationships. And so as Yah is calling us and preparing us and walking us through this thing, he's allowing, you got to get your house right first, right? So we're enduring this pressure and this shaping and this making and this molding, dealing with our close relationships. So that we will be prepared to go out into the marketplace to be able to minister to other people. But we first got to make sure, have we completely done the introspective work? Have we completely allowed Yah to come in those places that we thought we were delivered from? He's bringing it back to our remembrance. Yeah, we worked on this, but can you see that you still need some fine tuning in that area? So we need to work on that. And I think we are feeling that pressure, and he's also revealing to us our shortcomings in ourselves during this season. And now also, I'm trying to do the best I can in my walk, and I'm trying to share it with my loved ones, my family, my husband, or whatever. And I'm getting all this pushback, and I'm still working on me. And so, yeah, it's like a struggle because you're striving towards the mark, but you're coming up against opposition right in your intimate place. And so I think, we just really need to pay attention to that. But we can't give up, we can't cave in, and we can't quit. We have to stay. We got to continue to build that wall and keep that weapon ready. We still got to be fighting as we're building. And I believe that's the season that we're in right now, as he's preparing his army, which is us. We gotta be built up. We gotta be strengthened. We gotta deal with us before we can go out and take nations.
Hallelujah. And that brings me to the next part, because I broke down, I was like, in Jeremiah, I broke down where he said, he's like, I will make you. And so that word, I will make, is one word, and it's shin vav samik, which is shin is consume, destroy, sharp or sharpen, vav to secure, establish, a fit to be fixed, and samik is protected or support. And so basically, Yah saying, I'm gonna make you into my battle axe. You are my battle axe. I'm going, like, you're my armies. It's the making that he's making us into this thing, right? Like Latanya said, he's preparing his army, and we have to be doing the preparation. And what does this look like? This word, when he's saying, I'm gonna make you, it's saying, in this case, Yah saying, I will make you, as in this is a consuming, transformative, and oftentimes a destructive, because the destructive part of we have to die to a lot of things. Yah saying, I'm going to transform you in this manner that's going to seem kind of destructive. I'm transforming you, and I'm establishing into an establishment that is supported and protected by Yahuah, that's supported and protected by me. So this, when he's saying, I'm going to make you, it's like, I got to crush you, push you down, mold you around. It looks like I'm destroying everything right now. It's like the potter's wheel. It's literally a picture of him saying, I'm going to make you. And if you're not made properly, I'll push you back down and we'll start over again, because I'm establishing you into something that's supported by me. And when I make you, when y'all saying, when I make you, I support you, you're protected by me. So if someone fights against you, they're fighting against me. We have to understand this, that transformation, when Yah says, when Yahushua saying you die and you're born again, you're literally agreeing to be made over, to be recreated by Yah. And when you allow him to do the consuming, the destroying, the dying of the things that shouldn't even been there so he can establish you and what he's calling you to do. He's in every part of it. So if they touch you, they touching him. That's why he says, touch not mine anointed. Because if you touch the anointed, Yah's like, I'm coming for you. And so, yes, this is individual, but it's collective. It's one because we're a nation of people that Yah sees us as one bride for Yahusha. And so when we're all doing that work as a nation, he's going to move on our behalf, even in your own families, right? You may be the only one that's allowing Yah to remake you, to crush you and build you up, you're maybe the only one that's allowing Yah. It says he delights in a broken and a contrite heart. That's that crushing. You may be the only one that has a broken and a contrite heart, but Yah is gloried in that. And the way he fights for you, even in the midst of your family, may not be that he's going to lay his whole hand on your family in that moment, but he's giving them time to see the work, the transformative work that's in you. And there's going to come a time that if they continue to rail against you, they continue to harass and berate you, they put hands on you. I don't know everybody's individual process, but I cannot be ignorant to the fact that some people may have been accosted for simply sitting and standing in their relearning process with what Yah's walking them into. And so the next word, the word lay hands, is soon, which is to put, to place, to set, to appoint, to make, or to transform into, or to lay upon, or to lay hands on violently was actually in that Hebrew breakdown. And so when Yah is saying that he's going to lay his hand on a nation, or he's going to lay his hand on something to judge it, he's like, this is a direct, this is an extension of me. This is something that I'm setting, establishing, and ordaining. Like I'm ordaining this judgment. I'm doing it. Yah's taking everything. He's like, ain't nobody else doing this. Stop trying to give my judgment. Like, it's just the weather. It's just, climate change. Like I'm laying my hand on nations. And again, I gave some other verses. I really want us to really get this understanding that Yah calls us his army, that he is the one making and molding. He is the one that is making us into his army, his battle axe, his weapons of war. Micah 4:13. Arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, for I will make your horn iron. That's that he's going to make us hard. He's going to make us established, firm, fixed. I will make your hooves brass, and you shall beat in pieces many people, and I will consecrate their gain unto Yahuah, and their substance unto Adonai of the whole earth. Yah he's going to confirm it. He's going to confirm it. He's going to confirm it. Let's get another confirmation. Isaiah 41:15. You will be a threshing, a renewed, a refreshed. You will be a new threshing instrument with many sharp teeth. You will tear your enemies apart, making chaff of mountains. Y'all see how violent like that sounds? You're just like, ooh, oh my gosh, I thought we were supposed to love. You are supposed to love, because we're going to get it. We already talked about it. You're not physically going to be bashing people, okay? This is not you actually touching nobody. And it's to really understand where we're going here. You are not going to be out here pulling out weapons of man and going out of the streets trying to fight against this systematic wickedness. No, that's not how Yah delivers. That's not how Yah fights for his people. And we're going to see that's not how it happened in Exodus. The Israelites never had to pick up weapons to fight against Pharaoh. I really want us to understand it, because I know there's some people and some teachings out there like, prepare yourself, get your weapons. And you're just like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to let Yah fight for me. All right. Any questions, comments, commentary? Okay. Let me pick back up at verse 5. Then the Egyptians will know that I am Yahuah. He's saying, I'm going to bring you as my army, as my people, as my children. And the way I'm doing this is so that they will know who I am. So they will know that I am Yahuah when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. Moses and Aaron did just as Yahuah commanded. them. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. I want to say this too because it's never too late. You're never too old to start your process of trusting and taking your steps to walk with Yah and to do great and mighty things. Your age is not a factor for Yah. We've seen that all through our Genesis when we went through the whole entire book of Genesis, seeing Abraham and Sarah and how she thought because of her age and her old age that Yah couldn't do a thing, that Yah couldn't do a new thing. But here we're seeing this again in another thing. Moses is 80. Aaron is 83. And this is this new intense process that Yah is calling them to walk in at the forefront, in the trenches, the first line of battle. Like they're in the face of literal Pharaoh, who we've established is a type of a spiritual system of corruption and oppression. These two, what we call old men, are being like, no, we're gonna walk with Yah. We're gonna go against this system. You're never too old. You're never too young. Y'all don't care about how old or how experienced you think you need to be. He said, I want to use you. Let him use you. We talked about how Moses kept saying, I can't do it. I can't do it. And y'all's like, look, I'm not going to keep going back and forth with you. You're going to do it. And I'm going to supply and provide the necessary things you need to meet you where you are to get this task done, because I'm not going to find nobody else. I said it's going to be you. And that just shows the level of how much Yah loves and trusts and knows us more than we know ourselves. Yah knew that Moses was willing, but Moses had to work through his own fear, his own lack of faith, his own self-doubt, his low self-esteem. But because Yah sees us in the perfectness of how he created us, we can't understand why he wants to choose us, but he's like, but I see what I put in you and I made you. So I know you're capable. It's your flesh, it's the spirit of lying, it's doubt, it's deception that's causing you to rail against what I have declared and commanded and decreed of how I made you. Okay, verse 8. And Yahuah said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, then say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh so it becomes a snake. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as Yahuah commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh summoned the wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. I want to pause here. So Moses and Aaron do this sign and wonder, right? And because we know Egypt, Pharaoh, they are literally working in a spirit of witchcraft already, because rebellion is witchcraft. So because of their railing against the Most High Yah, because of the secret arts and the covenants and principalities that are at the forefront in the foundation of Egypt itself, Pharaoh's like, I don't care about them little signs. This is Pharaoh. I'm not saying Yah signs and wonders are little, but Pharaoh's mindset is, I don't care about them signs and wonders because I can recreate that. And I need us to know that nothing has changed. There's nothing new under the sun. That's why it says here, so I want to break down wise men, sorcerers, and magicians, because they're very different. And the word used for wise men is the same word that's used for wise all throughout Proverbs and Psalms. So it's not bad to be wise, but how are you using your wisdom, right? Because it says wise means to be ethically and religiously, so ethically and spiritually wise, according to what Yah, who is our spiritual foundation, who sets our standard, how does he say to use this wisdom? If we start using wisdom outside of what Yah says, it then falls into witchcraft. You see how it's not a fine line? Yah is the definite line. But when people say, oh, there's a fine line between, the faith of walking with Yahuah and witchcraft, it's really not. It's about obedience or disobedience. That's why Yah says rebellion or disobedience is the sin of witchcraft. He tells us very plainly and clearly what determines it being witchcraft versus it being wisdom. Wisdom is based in what Yah says, what Yah taught you, what Yah has instructed you to do. Wisdom comes by teaching. You are made wise by instruction. You are made wise by what Yah has deemed and established as his wisdom and knowledge. And I want to give it another breakdown of the word wisdom. So I have I didn't put it in the notes, but I'm just gonna like read it and I'll put it in the notes later for study purposes if you guys want to go back. But I just wanted to read off other scriptures that use that same word wise. That's even used when Pharaoh said he called the wise men. So that word wise is also used in Proverbs 107:43. Who is wise? That's that word. Who is Hakama? Who is wise and will observe these things? Even they shall understand the loving kindness of Yahuah. Proverbs 1:5. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. See, wisdom is always connected to you shimaying. I need us to understand that wisdom is only connected to when you shema or listen and obey what Yah says. If you think you're wise without shemaing to Yah, you're not wise. Again, Proverbs 1:6. To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the word of the wise. Proverbs 3:4. Be not wise, here we go, be not learned in your own eyes. Again, Proverbs is telling us what is wisdom. You cannot be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahuah and depart from evil. So he's basically saying if you're wise in your own eyes, you don't fear Yah, and that's evil. So again, this constant reminder that your wisdom cannot be outside of obedience. And there's an influx. There's a majority of people who find themselves to be wise outside of Yah's instructions, which means that they are working sorcery, witchcraft, magic. Okay, Exodus 28:3 also uses this word wise again too. We're going to see in the context of consecrating things to Yah. And it says, and you shall speak unto all that are wise-hearted. There's a thing, wise is directly connected to your heart posture as well. Because if you're wise, you're hearing and it's landing and it's being written on your heart. Whatever Yah says, you're wise, you're hearing what he's saying, and it's sitting in your heart. It's embedded in your heart. Who I feel with the spirit of wisdom. Yah is the one who gives wisdom. He's the one that fills you with wisdom. That they may make. So Yah gives us wisdom to be able to do and to make and to create things. In this case, to make Aaron's garments, to consecrate him. Everything that Yah gives us in our wisdom is to praise and to glorify him. That he may minister unto me in the priest's office. You see how that worked, how that wisdom worked? It wasn't wisdom for you to make yourself rich just to be rich. It wasn't wisdom to make yourself haughty and to say that, oh, I know more than this person. It's so that you can minister, so that you can help in the ministry, in the building of Yah's kingdom. That's wisdom. If your wisdom is not building if your wisdom is not for the building of righteousness, you're not building anything. You're not wise. So the other one is sorcerers. So what is sorcerers? Sorcerers is so I broke this one down by letter, but and it's Bet Shin Lamed. Our sorcery means to practice witchcraft, to whisper a spell, to use enchantment, to use this part right here got me. Magical songs to mutter. So we always talk about music is witchcraft. If it's getting you to mutter things and sing things and chant stuff, it's getting you to whisper. I call it mumble rappers. They literally be muttering and mumbling. Songs, spells, curses against yourself and your people and your neighbors, and you're saying all these things that are wicked out loud out of your mouth. You're muttering, you're whispering, you're constantly saying this thing over and over again. Repetition. Like, I don't understand the full science of the brain, but I know that when you repeat things over and over again, it starts to be ingrained. Someone could put a song on that I probably learned when I was 5 years old, and I remember it immediately. There's a song I think my parents had me sing when I was little. It's called The Song That Never Ends. I don't listen to that song, but because it's a constant repetition, this is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing and not knowing what it was. Why should I remember that song at 31 years old? because when I was singing it over and over and over and over again, it created a memory focus in my mind. So when I spoke it, I immediately remembered it. Music is ministry. And I talked to my brothers about this a couple days ago. I'm like, we are so casual with music these days that we forget that when Yah appointed the priests and the musicians, they had to be consecrated. This was part of music, was always connected to part of prophecy and encouragement and exhortations. The whole book of Psalms is literally songs. And a lot of the songs that were written were given in the midst of them receiving a prophetic download from the Most High Yah. Music is meant to uplift and to build the kingdom as well. And anything that is not doing that, it's witchcraft. It's causing you to think and meditate on something else. So I want to break down what that word sorcerer means. So Bet Shin Lamed. So Bet is the house, the temple, or the body. Shin is consume or destroy. And Lamed is teaching, authority, tongue, or to bind. And so literally sorcery or witchcraft is the temple or your body. So in this case, the temple is destroyed and consumed by the teaching. So again, literally, this sorcery, practicing witchcraft, using enchantments, using magical songs to mutter, you're destroying your temple by that teaching, by those words, by those utterances. In Exodus 22:18, thou shalt not suffer a witch, that's the same word used for sorcery, to live. Because Yah's like, I'm not going to allow you to destroy my temple, so I'm going to have to kill you. If you try to destroy my temple by these teachings, by these utterances, I will kill you. You don't get to live. Yah does not play about witchcraft. He does not play about teachings that are utterly against the building of his people. Malachi 3:5, I will be a swift witness against sorcerers and against the adulterers. The third one that Pharaoh called, he called the wise, he called the sorcerers, and he called the magicians. Sometimes we read that so fast, we thought, oh, they're all the same. They're one. I want us to break this down. And it's important for us to notice because things that are happening in Exodus are going to repeat in Revelations. There are going to be signs, there are going to be wonders, there are going to be people who are working magic and sorcery and wise things to recreate or to show signs and wonders. And you can't be fooled just because you saw a sign and a wonder. Magicians. Okay, so magicians are divinators directly connected to astrology. Engravers are writings in the sense of imitators of one possessed of occult knowledge, someone who is a bearer of secret or sacred words. Yah says he don't hide nothing from his people. So if you're someone that's a magician is someone that says they have a secret knowledge and that they are an imitator of someone that's possessed by this secret. Now, you see that word possessed? I was like, okay, let's go some more. Okay, Genesis 41:8. We see it again. So this is when I think it was either Jacob. It was one of the patriarchs when they had lied about being like their wife being their sister. It says, and Pharaoh's spirit was troubled, and he sent and called. Oh no, this is I'm sorry, this is Joseph. So Joseph's Pharaoh had a dream, and he's doesn't know how to interpret it. So he's calling all the wise and all the magicians and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, and there was none that could interpret it to Pharaoh. And see how it's a contradiction of what magicians are supposed to be able to do because they're working in an unclean spirit. They're trying to uncover secret knowledge. They're trying to be able to interpret or to divine or to understand something that's secret, because that's literally what they're saying, that they have this secret knowledge to be able to interpret things, but they can't interpret Pharaoh's dream. And that's why Joseph gets on the scene. Don't all interpretations come from Elohim? And you over here seeking other sources and not running to the one who is the one who allowed you to have the dream, who gave you your breath of life. In Daniel 1:20, it happened again because, story of Daniel and the three Hebrew men, he had a dream as well. And they're calling all these people and all matters of wisdom and understanding. and that the king inquired of them. He inquired of Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He called them and he said that he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in his realm, not just in his city, in his realm. So in that moment, I think Persia had control of the majority of the so-called known world. Yah set apart, consecrated, the ones that Yah made and molded, have more wisdom than those who are practicing divination, sorcery, astrology, all those things. Question, comments, commentary before we get back into Exodus 7.
Okay. Yes.
Go ahead, sis.
You're hearing me correctly? You're hearing me loud enough? Okay. In terms of what you were saying about astrology or astrologers, um, I just wanted to get a clarification on that because from Genesis, I was kind of always confused when it came on to that where it says that the sun and the moon, basically the great and lesser light, are to be used for signs and signs of the times and appointment times of appointments and stuff like that. Mention the stars as well. Whilst I do not follow up these things, I wanted to know what would be the borderline of crossing over into what would be witchcraft when using the stars and stuff like that in terms of, say, for instance, eventually we may not have the calendars after a while, or we need to know the appointed times that we're in. I wanted to know what would be the borderline of even knowing the difference of not going into witchcraft when it comes down to that.
That's a good question, sis. And it goes back to proper order and function, saying how what determines something being witchcraft is when it goes outside of the proper function of what Yah had created it to do. And so Yah told us right there, you read it. Yah said it's for signs and for seasons and for appointed times. And so when we start to try to use the moon, the sun, and the stars to dictate personalities, when a blessing's going to come into your life or something of those lines, Yah said it's literally for to know the days of the week, to know when it's nighttime, when it's daytime, when it's spring, when it's summer, when it's fall, when it's Passover, when it's unleavened bread, when it's tabernacles. He laid out. So he said it's for signs and seasons. Then he tells us, these are my appointed times. These are the seasons I want you to gather. And the sun and the moon are literally our big clock. So if we're using it other than trying to tell time, we're using it improperly and we veered into witchcraft. Because the sun, moon, and stars are literally for signs of the times and seasons of appointed times. But we have people who have now taken the sun, moon, and stars to say, okay, because the sun's here and the moon's there, and I was born on this date, that means I will move and act like this. And Yah said that is not the function of the sun, moon, and stars. You have taken it out of its function. So good means functional, evil means dysfunctional. We have now taken what Yah had called to be functional for a purpose and have made it dysfunctional to something that is outside of the parameters what Yah has called us to do. And so very, like, kind of when we talked about what makes you wise and what makes you wise in your own eyes, Yah says wisdom is directly connected to what he says and what he has ordained. And if we try to use, I use the same thing with just like with clean and unclean food. Yah says these foods are clean and functional for you to eat. Those other animals are not food. They're dysfunctional to your body. It's evil. It's unclean. It's the same understanding when it comes to the sun, moon, and stars. If Yah says use it like this, but we start using it in another way, we veered into wickedness and we veered into evil. So I just say, whatever Yah says to use it for, if he says it's for signs, seasons, and times, and then he tells us what his appointed times are, that's how we're supposed to use it.
So Maria, I like how you explain that because it's under the I mean, of course I'm thinking anything distorted, right? We take something that God said this is the way, and then we put our own, not we, but you know, the world, they put their own spin and come up with stuff. But the whole time you were like explaining it, that it made me think of, you know, um you just, that was short and quick and basic, like that's just that. But then you spin it, like you said, the personalities, or if you're not born on the first of the month, you're not going to be blessed, or you're incompatible, or this is the best season to do this and prosperous. But in a sense, by even voicing that, it's like we are given a principality power, because that has become a whole thing. Like in an innocent perspective, like people who aren't, you know, totally thinking they're disobedient, or you know, that part. But then even on the other side of truly digging into extra depths of asking this particular spirit, asking this particular, you know, like and it just spins into this whole big ball of stuff. And I've heard a teaching too that it was a different in astronomy and astrology, because people were saying, like, from a geology aspect, you know, they were just like, I like the stars, I like the planets. But then from the biblical perspective of saying, this is where it starts to get dirty and messy, when you start saying that, you know, well, I'm a Sagittarius, I don't get along with Taurus and all this, you know, type of stuff like that. Yeah, but I like how you broke it down. Like, what is the purpose of it? Think about what's the basic execution of it. If we're having discussions or kind of gleaning toward anything other than, does this feed me? Does this, you know, what is it? I know nighttime's coming. I know. And I would even think of it from a standpoint of when the storm is coming. Okay, prepare yourself, get your tail in the house, or, you know, that sort of thing. Or, you know, it was harvesting, right? In order to plant and feed. But I like your breakdown of that.
Hallelujah. Because, I look at the stars and the moon too, because I started to get into understanding the calendar outside of having to just rely on what man was saying and what people were saying. So I was like, okay, well, let me look up what constellations are in the sky when it's spring versus when it's winter versus when it's summer. And so then I can pull up my little star chart. And again, because we live in a world that is twisted and does not surrender to Yah, they name the stars based off the zodiac, but my use of looking at the stars to see the constellation of like Orion's belt or something else, if I can see it in a certain position, I know that spring is coming, because that constellation becomes more prominent in my hemisphere of where I am in the world. But I'm not using it to dictate personality traits, when I need to plan it. I'm looking for that star in the sky. I'm looking for when the sun and the moon are have equal day and light, to be like, okay, spring's coming. We're getting really close to spring. Spring is going to be on this day or this day. Or spring is going to be in this vicinity, because this star is in the sky. The moon has been up, has this many hours in the day, and the sun has this many hours. And that is like tracking time. I'm not using it for anything other than, okay, spring's coming. Okay, that star that represents spring is now gone, and now the fall constellation is more prominent in the sky. Again, not stepping outside the bounds of what it's used for. And it's hard in this day and age, because even when I was looking for an app or a constellation, I just want to know what stars are in the northern hemisphere when it's spring versus summer when it's fall. I was looking that kind of stuff up, right? And all the stuff that was popping up on my feed was saying, trying to veer it back to zodiac signs, veer it back to well, what your month is going to be like, or what this year is going to be. I was like, I don't want that information. I just want the astronomy of it, not the astrology of it.
And I can tell you that, like, certain part, like you said, you can certain things are visible in different parts of the world. But I did a tour in Jordan, and you know, over in that part of the country, Israel, Jordan, Iran, Iraq, stuff like that. I mean, aside from maybe pollution and whatever else, the sky is totally different than what it looks like over here. And when they say look for the brightest star and follow the brightest star because that's due north and things like that, like, those are things without technology that are fact. And if you're standing in the desert and there is nothing around you, nothing but sand for days, for days, for days, for days, like, I understood that astronomy teaching that, you know, like, why would you use the stars to figure something out? You know, it could
Yeah.
help you get your bearing, get you back home or whatever, something like that. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yep. And that's why, like, even when Yahushua was born, it was like the wise men, right? They were using signs in the stars, right? We don't know what they were wise to, but we know that they used wisdom, a type of wisdom, to figure out, oh snap, something monumental happened today. You know, they didn't know exactly what it was, but they were like, we're gonna follow this star. And we know that when Yahushua was born during tabernacles, which is already an appointed time based on the signs, seasons, and times. Tabernacles is based in the tracking of it's the 7th month of the 15th day of the month, and so that happens during a certain time period. The stars are different during tabernacles than when they are during Passover, than where they are during Shavuot. And so when we try to make everything so woo woo, it's beyond our comprehension. Y'all's like, I told you what it's for. Just stay within those guidelines. Everything else around you is going to try to tell you to use it like this and use it like that. But what did I say? Again, it goes back into, who do you fear? Who do you trust? And if we say we trust Yah, but we don't trust what he said that this function is for, then we don't trust his instructions of a thing. Okay, I want to read this one last proverb about wisdom, because we're still, all of this kind of goes into the wisdom and the sorcery and the magicians and what's that line, right? In Proverbs 9:8, it says, reprove not a scorner, lest he hate you. But if you rebuke a wise man, he will love thee. So basically saying, when we're saying these things like we're saying tonight, if we're saying, hey, Yah says to use his creation like this to someone who doesn't want to hear the scorner, they're going to hate you for telling them you should not be participating in astrology and all these things, and thinking that the sun, moon, and stars are going to dictate when you should or shouldn't do something, or when you should have been born, or who you're compatible with. Were we telling people that? They're going to hate you for speaking against their witchcraft, right? But a wise person, when they hear that, they're like, oh, that makes sense. I received that. Thank you for telling me that. I love that. I want to go back to what Yah says. You see that it's all about the heart posture and the receiving, the Shema. If you're going to Shema what Yah says to do, that goes right back to what we talked about. The first word, wise, is only connected to your obedience into hearing Yah's instructions. Okay. Okay. And we're gonna go back to this too, about like differentiating between like someone who's a prophet and someone who just is using divination, because Yah tells us how to determine if this person is someone that's sent by him and that's surrendered to him. Because he already knew, even within our people, there was going to be some people who would twist and pervert what he said to do and how to use certain things. Okay, but let's get back into Exodus 7. I think I stopped at 12. Okay. We were talking about they did the same things with their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff. We're in verse 12. Threw down his staff, or his staff, and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to them, just as Yahuah had said. Okay, and so clearly we're getting the first sign here in front of all of Egypt, or in front of Pharaoh. And I thought it was interesting because they cast down his staff, or in other translations says his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rods or staff swallowed up theirs. And if you know anything, we get into breaking down the Hebrew a lot of times here. And so the rod, or the staff, in the Hebrew alphabet is represented as a lamed. It literally looks like a shepherd's staff, right? And so the Pharaoh was so hardened that he could not even see the fact that he had already lost in this first sign and wonder. Yes, you were able to replicate it. Yeah, your magicians were able to make their staffs turn into snakes as well. But you didn't pay attention to see that the authority of Moses and Aaron's staff consumed and destroyed yours, which is a representation of authority. Your authority is no match for the authority of Yah's. It's going to consume and it's going to destroy you. And so Pharaoh was so hard and he couldn't even see that. He was just like, ha, we did it too. But you did it, but it was unsuccessful. You did it, but it was halfway what it was supposed to do. And that's the trick about witchcraft and sorcery. They can do it. It looks right. They even multiplied the sign. They turned their staff into snakes as well. And a lot of time with people who are playing with witchcraft and divination and sorcery and tarot cards and psychics is the psychic be right. The psychic did tell you that this was going to happen, just like Pharaoh's sorcerers and magicians were able to make their staffs turn into snakes too. But you're not looking at the end game. And that's the thing about witchcraft and sorcery. You can't see the end game because they're blind. You're going to someone who's blind to try to get an answer. So you yourself are going to be blind to the consequences, that you are going to be consumed and destroyed because you plan with something that doesn't have real authority. And so Pharaoh missed the fact that his two, I think he said that he had summoned the sisters and did the same thing in their and Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs, multiple, more than one, right? I know I was watching the Prince of Egypt and it showed that there was two snakes that was created by divination, but it didn't give us a number. It just says it was multiple. I don't have the full picture. They didn't give us a number, but I would not be surprised if it was more than two. It says Aaron threw down his staff in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers. So wise men, multiple, sorcerers, more than one. So it was at least four. And the Egyptian magicians, another multiple. So at least six. And they all did the same thing by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff. Each one of them had a staff. Each one of them had a teaching and authority. And it turned into a snake. And Yah showed them that, yeah, Aaron got a staff, Moses got a staff, their staff is a snake too, and it's going to consume each and every one of your authorities. Everything that you think that you taught and that you're learning you're wise in, it's going to be destroyed by Yahuah.
So my imagination says that Pharaoh didn't know, but all the little witches and warlocks, they knew. They went back to a huddle and was like, oh, shoot. But it was about that's like that picture of a confusion, because at that moment, was that really about Pharaoh being convinced? He wasn't going to change his mind anyway, because it was about having his way. So, I'll give y'all a little show or whatever, then hee ha ha. But I bet y'all the little warlocks, the little witches, they went back and was like, oh, we got a real problem, right?
Yeah.
Like he missed the whole thing because his is power and control. But
Yeah.
the witches knew what they were up against.
I would say yes and no, because the people who work the witchcraft, they have the same spirit of Pharaoh. Like they still have, it's about power and control. And we're going to see, so as we go through the rest of 7 and 8, we're going to see that they replicated multiple signs and wonders. And it wasn't until they couldn't replicate what Moses and Aaron did that they were like, oh, snap. It took a minute even for them, sis, to realize what they were up against, because the delusion of witchcraft is it is a hardening of your heart that you don't think that you need to surrender to the Most High Yah for your authority and power, and they could not even see it. That's the thing about blind leading. So these sorcerers are the ones that are leading Pharaoh. They're the blind leading Pharaoh, who is also blind. Pharaoh always refers to them. He always defers to them. It's not them deferring to Pharaoh. They're like, oh yeah, Pharaoh, we got it, we good. Like they replicated multiple signs that Moses, it wasn't until they could not do it that they were like, this is the finger of Elohim. It took like 4 or 5 times for them to be able, it took 4 or 5 times of them replicating it to where they couldn't replicate it. They were like, okay, we're out of our depth here. And even then, it still didn't stop them. It still didn't cause them to surrender to Yah. And that is the stronghold. That is the demonic principality of witchcraft, of wisdom outside of Yah, of sorcery, of manipulation, of divination, of magicians. And that's why Yah's so swift to cut it out of the people. Because even the one practicing it is practicing these things are so deceived in their mind, their eyes would need to be basically gouged out because they don't have eyes. And that's the part I was just like, wow. because it didn't click for them until they couldn't replicate the sign and wonder.
I recognize that as well, sis. That was real good because I've been listening to 7 and 8 over and over and over. I've been listening to it so much, and I picked up on that same thing. They were still over there, moving and grooving, and then when they couldn't do it, no, I forgot which sign. I can't remember what sign, but I just listened to it again today, and they was like, "Oh, like you said, oh snap! Like we couldn't conjure up. Our little ruachs couldn't get us to produce this thing. So this Elohim over here that they serving must be the one, because we've been dibbling and dabbling with all this, but like you said, they couldn't see it. As long as they was producing, they was rolling like, yeah, we got this. Yeah, okay, come on, what else you got? And then they had to eat their words. And it was like, it got real to them. But like you said, even after it got real, they still didn't surrender.
Yeah.
It's like it was that last plague, they was like, look here, that what, Pharaoh, do you want us to die? He gonna take us out.
Yeah. Man, and that thing you said, as long as they were producing, they thought they were good.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So I remember I had gave I think I was talking to you, but I was talking to multiple people about, like, recently, Yah was just really exposed, like, this season of the Josiah versus the Jeroboams. And even in the spirit of Jeroboam, of like those who are walking in wickedness, but because they're prosperous, because they're producing, that literally, because you are producing, because you're successful, you think that you're okay. You think you still have authority. And that's the deception of the spirit of Jeroboam, or the spirit of Pharaoh. It's all the same spirit. It's the spirit of rebellion. It's a spirit of comfortability and complacency, because you, on the outside looking in, you're producing, you're successful, you look like you got fruits because it looks fruitful around you.
Right.
Because look at Egypt, fruitful, successful, biggest power in the land, in the world at that point. They're like, you can't tell us nothing. Look at this.
Yeah. That's how the enemy keeps those hooks in us. You know what I'm saying? He gives you just enough. He gonna destroy your whole world and blow you up, but he give you just enough for you to feel good, to continue in your sin, continue worshiping him, continue giving him glory, and making him stronger or whatever, just enough so you will stay into it, so you can keep him in power. So he's really the one that's controlling you, but you think you over here controlling somebody else, and you have some kind of authority. You have nothing. And we're just so blinded. Like you said, we're just blind. We can't even see it. We don't even understand. We don't even know that we're being controlled.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why Yahuah called Hashatan, or the serpent, the most subtle. Because the thing about subtle power, or subtle deception, is that you're going to be deceived and you don't know it. And that's why the spirit of pride is so detrimental too, because person that is walking in pridefulness doesn't realize that they themselves are being used by a principality to keep them in a state of hardness, to not want to hear the word, because it keeps that principality, that spirit, that wickedness in the forefront, or in the control. And it's so subtle that the enemy is just like, I don't need you to like full out serve me. I just need you to not listen and serve Yah.
Right. Exactly.
He don't even care about you. He don't even care if you don't serve him. He's like, I just need you to.
Absolutely. He ain't gonna do heavy lifting. That's it. Just don't be,
don't be obedient. I could care less if you're calling it, you're worshiping your ancestors, or you're seeking the sun, moon, and stars, or you're just gonna pay homage to the earth, into the land, into the nature. I don't care how you do it, as long as you don't serve Yah.
Right. Taryn and I were having a conversation, I think it was yesterday, and I was like, it's the small things. We need to make sure we address these small things that we kind of let roll off our back. No, we need to nip those things in the bud, because the enemy is getting a pinhole, and he's taking a whole football field in our life. You know what I'm saying? We give him a little pinhole, and then he coming, oh, I have access, and now he done wreaked havoc in your life because it was something you didn't think was a big big thing. And I think during this period now that we're in this refining in this preparation period, y'all is revealing to us, look, I need you to handle that little pinhole over there, because that's where your air is seeping out over there. I'm gonna need you to go and address that. Let's get that cleaned up so this armor doesn't have any breaches in it. He's trying to make sure this armor is strong and there are no breaches, because we've had some little breaches, not huge, not big things, little things. We got to handle these little things that wear us out, because it's all these little things that keep coming. We're like, oh, it's no big deal, but it's wearing us down. All these little annoying things that keep nagging at us. And that's, like you said, that's how cunning and how swift and how stealthy he is.
Oh yeah, I've been feeling that this week too, because I just been like sitting here and I'm just like, I really need to just like get back into like being more intentional with my consecration, you know. Again, with everything around us trying to pull our attention away from what Yah's doing in this season. It's so easy to slip into a pattern of, I guess, like passive warfare, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's
You know,
exactly what we were
We
talking
have to be
about.
intentional. Yes.
And I said that. I said, and then I'm sitting here looking at the wall, like, you know, hearing a message about, but you're not putting no word on it. You not, you know, like I don't have no energy. I ain't get up and flip furniture. I ain't cussing and fussing. And I'm thinking about, oh yeah, you know, but it's not like the true deliverance, because now I'm just gonna avoid you. Now I just don't want to be bothered with you now. But I'm still
And he
letting all this
wins
stuff.
in that moment.
Right,
He
right.
wins.
And all that stuff is still, because it's compromise, it's separation, it's don't, you know, no attention. Yes, not to lose my peace, but attention to nip it, to let it know I'm still not tolerating it, you know. So I'm thinking like, man, I didn't I wasn't like I can think about a lot of things I've purged from, but then just probably these couple weeks of just, you know, surgery or whatever. Have I been fasting like I normally do? No. Have I given up certain stuff? You know, like those things, but it allowed other things to have access to me, because
Mm.
I wasn't utilizing the tools that I'm supposed to be, you know, like I wasn't fully prayed, you know, to the stuff when we was warring and I was making my list and, ooh, today you about to get a piece of, you know, and I wasn't doing all that. So then there's a little, that foothold, like she said, a little bit of access, a little bit of access, a little bit to twerk your nerve, a little bit to something, you know.
Yeah. No, that's, man, that's it right there. And again, and then when we realize that in that moment, not to shame or condemn yourself, but to be like, okay, let me start back.
Hallelujah. That's what I was just about to add to,
Yeah.
sis. I was just gonna say that he
When you
showed
realize
us.
that, you
He's
get back on it.
right in that. Okay, y'all. Okay, I got it. Because you know, like you said, you was like, "Woe is me." Well, I bent, yeah, yeah. Oh. And then he correction. Then he quickly, and you're like, "Oh, okay, Abba. All right. I just needed to get that out. Okay, I'm gonna get back on my assignment." And that's where we can't condemn ourselves. That's the thing. And I believe, I just truly believe in this season, this is where he has us. I'm showing you, daughter. I'm showing you, son. I'm revealing this thing to you. You thought you had it together. You made, you know, great improvement, but there's still some work to be done. You're still on the wheel. I'm still molding you and making you, because I need that armor to be all the way together. You know, I need you to be all the way together. If you're going to be my army, when you get out there, I don't need that one good blow to hit you and your arm are going to just fall off. You know, I'm going to need you to have it together.
Yes. There's a post from Sister Tesuvia. She posted something about like, it's in the small steps. Like, give yourself grace to like the small habits, the small steps, the small steps that you're taking to be consistent in your work. Even if it's like you didn't read your word for 30 minutes, but today you started, you did 2 minutes a day. You did 5 minutes the next day. You did 2 minutes the next day. But you're consistent in actually getting in your word, even if it's for a moment. Because don't allow it just because you wanted to do a 2-hour Bible study or a 1-hour Bible. Or you had said, I was going to do 30 minutes of Bible study today, but you only got around to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do not condemn yourself as you are getting back up from
Yeah.
being knocked down for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to a sis this week, and I was telling her, she was talking about, she had said she was going to do a fast, and then, some things happen, we start our cycles, all these things or whatever, right? And then we don't do that fast the way we wanted to do the fast. No, you set an appointment with Yahuah. Stick to the appointment. You may not do it the whole way you wanted to do it. You might have said you was gonna do absolute fast. You weren't gonna do nothing. Drink some water, some juice, do a juice fast, eat some fruit. You know what I'm saying? But keep your appointment. Make the modifications, but keep the appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was learning this week too, because last week I was telling Latanya and our sister Christina, I was very like, what was me? I just, gave that prophetic word, and then like they didn't receive me, and then I got fired, and it just really hurt. And I was just in a very state of just like mourning and like giving myself a pity party. And I just snapped out of it. But like I've still like this whole week has still been me like snapping out of it slowly, if that makes sense, where I'm like, okay, I know that, y'all told me to snap out of it. He's correcting me. And I'm getting in my word a little bit today, a little bit this day. And but then there were so many things around like trying to distract me, like people, talking about false doctrine things. And I'm just like, I gotta address this. I'm addressing it right. I'm still keeping my love and my shalom with people, but I'm just like, I'm trying to get back on track with Yah and heal properly to be fortified, while also still doing like kingdom work and being available to like answer questions or to like nip things in. But it's so much going on, y'all, that I'm grateful that y'all allowed me to experience this week about all the different things that like I was speaking against and correcting, because it just really showed that like, oh snap, there's literally war on every front. Like as I was looking at my wounds last week, and as I'm getting up this week, y'all was showing like, he's like, I need you to understand how serious this is, because like I know you're still healing somebody, but look around. And I was like, oh my gosh. I literally responded to a brother, and he was saying that like Israelites are not going to get judged and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, that's not true. Like Yah said he's coming to cleanse us and purge us, and then we get access into the kingdom. Like you don't get to not receive Yahushua Hamashiach and think that you're getting into New Jerusalem. Like that's crazy. And after the conversation happened, I literally was just walking around the house, and I was like, everybody was asleep. Like my brothers were asleep, and I was just like, yeah, it's correct. I was talking out loud, literally like this, like, Yahuah, this is crazy. I was like, Abba, this is ridiculous. People are crazy. I literally was saying this, looking literally like this. Like I could not believe what I was hearing. And then the next hour later, someone messaged me, a Gentile sister messaged me saying like, hey sis, are Gentiles going to be allowed in the kingdom? Because it's really disheartening, because as a white person, I'm hearing all these different things. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like it's just so many things. There's so many deceptions. There's so many people who are feeling like they don't even need to try to seek Yah because someone told them they're not going to get in regardless of them accepting Yahushua and keeping the commandments and repentance. And I'm just like, I was like, yeah, there's so much deception. I can't even imagine some of these conversations that are being had concerning you and your word if we would just read our word. And I was just like, oh wow. And it was like those were things that were realization to me that like, you thought that thing that happened 2 weeks ago was bad, was harsh. You need to be able to recover more quickly, Samari, because look around. I'm preparing you. I'm preparing your sisters. I'm preparing your brothers out there you don't even know, because there is opposition on every side. He's like, I know you know that because you said that a couple weeks ago in Bible study. You've been knowing that we're going to war in the spirit. But like, I don't think you've actually seen the types of things and lies that I'm building my army to fight against. And I hadn't seen conversations like this before. And it was so surprising to me because I'm like, I had no idea
that people were it's things we think that people just know. And it's like, wow. And like you said, if you just open your Bible, you can see it. But the word does say that, he reveals the secret things to his children. And then if you're not, I mean.
But we're in the season, like you said, of revealing too. So in that moment, like we were talking about that, because I mean, that's for me, I'm looking at the accountability on the church, the accountability of your, if people want to call it your ancestors, you know, how you've been taught that through your family stuff and all of that stuff. But now we're sensitive to it.
Mm.
It makes you go, wow. It's like, you've been in church your whole life,
Mm-hmm.
churchianity or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like simple things that, we're talking about here as we're in truth. Now we're like, wow, the foundational things weren't even being taught. Just like simple things, day-to-day things that we should know, you know what I'm saying? And that's why it's so important to read your word for yourself. If you're asking Yah, if you're seeking, if you're knocking, he will reveal it to you. He will. You don't have to look to a man. And I think we've been so conditioned that we can't, we gotta be up under a covering of a church or pastor or a bishop or somebody. Yahuah is our bishop, our pastor, our covering. He's everything. He gave us the Ruach HaKodesh to give us understanding of his word. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, so much that has to be unlearned, that has been, manipulated and perverted and all this kind of stuff and twisted. And it's just so sad because now I think we've kind of taken for granted that people know simple things and they don't. They
Mm-hmm.
don't. We're trying to get into, we need to be in the meaty things. We've been on this milk for a long time, but a lot of people don't even have the milk. They don't even have the colostrum. They just came out. They don't have any kind of nutrients, nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's jaw dropping. We're like, whoa. Yeah, I'm trying to tell this person that you are Hebrew. They don't even know that you love them, really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you who you are, and they need just, your Elohim loves you. You know what I'm saying? they
Mm-hmm.
they don't even have that. They've been through so much hurt. And so I just believe as a people that we need to be really sensitive to Yah's
Mm-hmm.
people, as and I believe that's why he's putting us back in the fire and refining us and fine-tuning us and making and molding and healing things in us so that we can be sensitive to his people, because they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know.
And I think in tapping into that sensitivity, it also helps us kind of we minister a little different, because you do have to think about the capacity of the person to understand and those types of things. Like you want to build the solid foundation, right? And and where you said, like, if we're on meat and they're on milk, you like, what? I mean, why you just didn't read it, or why you didn't? And not to say that we do that, but I know now I'm definitely the way I'm going back through stuff and strengthening stuff and really getting an understanding of it, um where I was already bought in, but like now I can connect a lot of the links and things like that together, and that's out of relationship too. But I think that I communicate differently and receive that differently with people seeing that, because now I do see it as like it's your environment, it's your home, it's just I mean, black versus white, whatever the case. It's like everything you've been taught, all this stuff. Um, and I just always think about, like, is it effective? And
Yeah.
in the moment, I was telling Tanya earlier this week, like I really was like, as I was having a whole conversation with one of my kids, and in my head, I was like, kind of having a conversation with y'all. Like I could see it, a lot of different things all at one time. So when you say fighting on all fronts, yes. Being refined all over again, constant refining,
Yeah.
yes. Being sensitive to a lot of different things. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to where I would have never paid a lot of this stuff attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
y'all's downloading the revelation into us as we're going through the situation in the moment now. That's the season that we're in. He was like, we don't have no more time. And that's that urgency that we're feeling. He's getting us equipped and prepared now because he was like, we don't have no more time. I'm gonna need y'all out here working. So I need you to be prepared. I need you to be geared up. I need you to be, whole. I need you to be whole so you can help snatch somebody else out of the hole.
Yeah. Hallelujah. And that thing about Terrence said about ministering differently, I think because we're understanding now how now we just covered witchcraft and sorcery and the twisting and the deception. Now that we understand how strong of a principality this rebellion is, a spirit of witchcraft. So people who don't even know, we thinking that if you just read it, you will see it. But because witchcraft literally blinds your eyes, that's why like religion,
Yes.
Christianity, Judaism, whatever ism and schism you're a part of, it is witchcraft because it blinds you because you can read this truth and you still won't see it. That's why Yahushua said,
Right.
they have eyes, but they don't see. They have ears, but they don't hear. They are under a spirit of witchcraft because they cannot receive the word of truth. And so it is him who does the revealing. And sometimes it would have been like Moses trying to say, I'm here to, deliver the Israelites. And he wasn't even really talking and ministering to Israel. They have been under the spirit of oppression and rebellion and witchcraft for so long. A lot of times our ministry going to be just you doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Just you walking it, just you getting that deliverance, just you walking in that freedom, just you tearing down them principalities, because Moses was coming to save the people, right? But even the people we talked about last week, the Israelite overseers also did not believe. They just wanted to get comfortable in their Egypt. It wasn't until the signs and wonders came to a brink. It wasn't until they was actually leaving. It wasn't until they were actually crossing the Red Sea. And even after that, there was still lack of belief. And so to know when we minister, it's really about how we operate, how we treat people, how we receive Yah's instructions, and how we articulate that to our brothers and sisters around us. And that's why Yahuah got so upset with Moses when he hit that rock instead of speak to it. Because Yah's like, I'm trying to get them to see that I love them and I'm a provider for them. I'm trying to get them to see that the way that they had it before was wrong, was a lie, was detrimental to them. But they walk with me, there's life, there's water, there's prosperity. And we have to be surrendered vessels. So when the people start to agitate us and spit on us and call us all kinds of words and lies, we will not react in a way that diminishes the character and the heart posture of our Heavenly Father. That is the power of Yahushua HaMashiach. Go ahead, sis. I see you got your hand raised.
Sis, I just wanted to say, let me deep sigh, because yes, it is heavy, and it's also, it can be disheartening. But what I'll say, and what I've been saying for years, and you were with me when I was a part of the other assembly or group or whatever you want to call it, and I think your first phone call, I was basically telling them like how, if we have no healing within and we're traumatized and we're acting out of being traumatized, then we're not going to walk in love, period. And that's what I'm realizing, whether it's through, and I'm just realizing that you were sharing a conversation in regards to something you were going through this week as well. But I'm saying, like, I'm realizing this in every form. Like, people are so cruel and they're so nasty across the board. And it's because they're not healed and they're not whole by Yah, right? So they call names, they dispute, they don't want to listen. And it's all because they've been traumatized. Number one, like a lot of people, yeah, they come into the truth, but they had bad upbringings to begin with, right? Or they was jacked up to begin with. And even though some of us have all experienced some of those things too, those of us that can extend grace and mercy and love is because we've experienced it, right? So I'm just like, I got chills, and like I want to burst into tears because my heart hurts, because we're so blind Yah's children in general. I'm talking about the Christians across the board, people that believe that they are his children, right? And they say that they worship him. We like, why are you living like this? And what are you doing? And how can you live this way and do this thing and do that and say that you love Yah or love the Lord or whatever you want to call him, right? And just carry on. And it's because they're unwhole. They're lacking. The word says, what does it say? My patience, it says, is mature, whole, complete, not lacking anything. I can't remember which one I'm talking about, but maybe somebody knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's Paul, and he was talking about, I can't even think of it right now, but basically when you're whole, you're not lacking anything. He said, but he that is double-minded is like a wave of the seas. He's blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not expect to receive anything from Yah, right? Because he's unstable in all that he does. And that is what it is. It's instability. They're unstable. These are unstable people that we're talking about because they're not whole in Yah. And so even us, with all of our imperfections and everything that we've been talking about here, and then what I've been listening to on this call, like, we war just like everybody else, right? But then we have to regroup and be like, okay, Yah, like, I'm going to get myself together because I'm your daughter, I'm your son, I'm your child, right? And I'm going to adjust my situation and focus on you because you're going to do everything that you said you would, right? Because I trust you because you're my father. Other people that are unstable, when the winds come and the rains blow and the house shakes, they crumble. And that is who we are feeding our energy to, our investments to, when we are pouring in all of our time and effort in frugal arguments, because some people, they're just empty and you just keep pouring into their glass and it just keeps emptying out because they're not trying to be healed, right? So they're coming up, the attacks and everything. So, we have to be prepared for that. Even you more so, Samaria, because you are open to that, especially, your teachings, your what you invest in online, that's your ministry. So, these are the kind of like people or creatures, I would even say. Some of them are creatures because I don't even believe all of them are people. Some of them are got other stuff mixed up with them or whatever, and they're intently just nasty, evil people. So they're unwhole and they don't have Yah, and that's what it is. And I think I probably stressed that point or whatever, but it is just so disheartening because, like, just to know what people are doing in this world, and how they're just like moving past us, and we just can't get it together. We just can't get it together. I'm not talking about the core. I'm talking about the people that we yearn and we intercede for. I'm not talking about us, because I know we have an alliance here, you know what I mean, and with the remnant. But anyway, I'll just stop on that. It's just, y'all.
I found the verse, Aisha. It was James.
Yes.
One.
Consider it pure joy when you face trials of diverse kinds, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance develops. That one. Sorry, I couldn't remember it initially, and I'm driving. But
no, you good.
Go on and read that thing, sis, and finish
I
it
was
out.
like, I got it here too. I was on standby.
Hallelujah. Praise God, y'all.
Hallelujah. We'll go ahead and read it. Okay. So James, the servant of Elohim and of Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and in whole, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, that give to all men liberally, freely, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that waver is like a wave of the sea, driven by the wind and tossed. For let not that man think he shall receive anything of Adonai. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So I love me some James. Boy, James
there
be.
It is.
Boy, James be.
Hallelujah.
Woo! James
there
be
it is.
Cutting up.
And that's it. That's the word right there. Like those of us that trust in Yah, we're patient in him, and our patience develops perseverance, right? And perseverance develops, long suffering and everything else associated with that. And anyone who's completely opposite of that is just completely unstable. And it's because they're double-minded. And Yah said this man should not expect to receive anything from him. So this goes along with these people that are casting out other people and saying, you know, you're not getting in or whatever. You're just unhealthy and unstable. You're mentally confused. You got issues.
Yeah.
And you are unhealed. That's what's wrong with you. When you would tell another human being that there's no mercy for you. You know why there's no mercy for you? Because I have so much hate in my heart that I can't even think of there's any mercy anyway. Can you imagine how these people treat the people that are around them?
It shows a lack of the fruits of the spirit, or the fruit of the spirit, because me and Latanya talked about this before. Like, the fruit of the spirit is not just love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. It's like, it's not outside of obedience. If you're saying you're obedient and you're keeping God's commandments, but you lack the fruits of the spirit, you don't have his spirit. If you say you have love, joy, peace, and patience, but you're disobedient, you don't have the fruit of the spirit. They are literally, it's one spirit. It's one spirit that produces fruit. And I think the main word here that really like caught my eye is James saying, like, it's patience, and your patience produces wholeness. But we can't forget that it's patience. It's a process. And so I'm saying this as a word of encouragement, you know, to our sister. Like she said, hence it's a narrow road, right? Because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. But because we've been taught, we've been bamboozled, we've been lied to with witchcraft, thinking that just because you got baptized and you believe, you automatically there's this change happens, and we don't have patience anymore, because we forget that to be taught by Yah is a patience working daily step-by-step process. And if we're meeting people who are just getting on this road and we don't understand that concept of patience, we try to chastise and rebuke people for not being where we are right now, or for not having to understand. So when we do minister, we minister with that knowing that, okay, they haven't even said yes to standing up yet. Let me just show them the love of Yah. I'm not going to waver in my obedience. I'm not going to waver in how Yah's called me to live and me on my obedience, but I'm still going to show them love and extend grace and mercy because I was them before. And I think a lot of times when we start walking with Yah, there's a forgetfulness so quickly that you was literally swimming in your vomit not too long ago.
That's good, sis. We definitely need to say like that.
It's so like it's like the spirit of pride came in and just disrupted the good work that Yah was doing. Whew. Okay, so I want to get into this before because it's getting kind of we're getting into 2 hours now. We started at 6:30, but I did want to read over this about the signs and wonders because I really want us to understand this as we are walking in these last days. It says here, obviously, you know, like Pharaoh's serpents got devoured by Yahuah's staff that turned into a serpent, and they couldn't perceive it because they were blind, right? That's somewhere we're left off. I wanted to say on here that if all it takes is a few signs and wonders to convince you that someone is being sent by Yah, they have power, you will be misled, which is why the Egyptians were misled. Some of the Israelites were misled. The only sign that we should be looking for from people is their obedience to the commands of Yahuah. Yahusha healed the sick, raised the dead, walked on water, fed thousands. And that did not stop our ancestors from lying on him and killing him. So it can't just be your signs and your wonders, right? Because that wasn't enough for them to believe Yahusha. Like, and he was sent by Yah because he was obedient. They love the signs and the wonders. I need us to understand this. The world is going to love the signs and the wonders, but their hearts are not going to want to hearken to the words that come out of the Savior's mouth. And that was the whole problem. Our people never wanted to hearken. Our people never wanted to shema. His words of return, Yahusha's words of return, his words of repentance, his words of restoration through redemption and renewal of the marriage covenant, they did not want to hear that, but they loved getting the signs and the wonders. So how does Yah tell us to discern signs and wonders? In Deuteronomy 13:1, it says, if there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams and giveth a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass, basically saying like the witchcraft and sorcerers, their sign happened. Their wonder, they did it. He's saying, if that sign comes to pass, whether they spake into and they're saying, If they start saying stuff like, let us go after other gods, let us not listen to Yah, let us do opposite of what he said, which that has not been known, and let us serve those other gods and spirits, you shall not listen unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For Yahuah, your Elohim, for Yahuah, your Elohim proves you to know whether you love Yah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your soul. So Yah saying, I'm telling you now. You saw it happen in Egypt. This is after they got out, right? I'm reading Deuteronomy. This is after they got out of Egypt. This is after all that. He's saying, people gonna come up. They're gonna be doing signs and wonders, just like you've seen in Egypt. But what is the factor that draws the line? We talked about this earlier about wisdom and the sorcery and the witchcraft. If they telling you to go against what Yah had told you to do, and if you walk in it anyway, you don't love Yah with all your heart, mind, and soul, because Yah saying this is part of my proving process. So I'm gonna let people believe the signs and the wonders because it's just exposing their heart. Matthew 24:24. For there shall rise many false Hamashiachs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, it says, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So there's an if in there saying like it could happen, it couldn't happen. You shouldn't be deceived if you read your word. You shouldn't be deceived if you know what Yah says about signs and wonders and what should be your determining factor to believe that person or not. If that person is walking in disobedience and they work in signs and wonders, that is a false Christ. That's a false prophet. If they're healing the sick and giving sight to the blind, but they're disobedient, they don't walk in obedience and reverence for Yah, that's a false prophet. 2 Thessalonians, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Because again, I like how Paul put that lying wonders and then just say wonders, because he's telling you now, it's kind of already embedded in within this. Even when Yah is saying it in Deuteronomy, he's saying, how do you discern if there's a real sign or a wonder? But if they're disobedient, they're lying. They're not from me. Paul's making it very clear. Yeah, it's signs and lying wonders. Yeah, they're wonders. They're doing it just like the Egyptians, just like the sorcerers. They did the signs, but it was a lying sign. In the Revelations 13:11, I want us to really get this in us to understand. You're going to see signs and wonders, but they're going to be deception. And behold, another beast come up, and the deaf great, and he doeth great wonders, and he made fire come out of heaven. He did a holy Elijah thing. He made fire come out the heavens. We're gonna see people literally call down fire out the heavens, and we're gonna be like, oh my gosh, the spirit of Elijah is back. Hold on now. This is the beast that's doing this and making fire come out of the heavens, and the earth and the signs of man, and deceiving them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Guys, signs and wonders are never supposed to be our marker if someone's sent by Yah. People gonna be out here calling down fire like Elijah, but they're disobedient to Yah. Exodus, I'm sorry. So basically, we have to have that understanding that we cannot be swayed by signs and wonders, because Yah's already telling us there's always been people who did signs and wonders. This is not something new that's going to just happen in the last days. It happened in the first days, in the second days, in the middle of the book. And it's going to happen again in the back of the book. People are doing signs and wonders currently. Okay, so I want to get back to this rod part on verse 12, 7 verse 12. He cast on their rod and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed theirs up. So we know the rod represents the authority, leading power, and it also represents the chief, the staff, the branch of the tribe. And so we know that the rod of Yahuah, or the lamed, the shepherd's staff, is representation of Yah's authority in his teaching. And in Psalms 23, it says, yea, though I walk, y'all know this one, through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me, thy rod, my authority. You are my authority. You are my teaching. You are my leader. You comfort me. Your teachings, your authority, they comfort me, Abba. In Ezekiel 20:37, it's a prophecy about how Yah's going to regather us. And he's telling us, I will cause you to pass under my rod, like a sheep holding up the shepherd's rod. Do you know that process is for the shepherd to inspect the sheep as they go under the rod? So Yah saying, I will cause you to pass under my teaching, my authority, my leading power. You're going to pass under it, and I will bring you into what? The bond of the covenant. We all have to go under the teaching. We have to go through the teaching. Yah is going to inspect us whether we be in his teaching or not, whether we be in his covenant, because then you get into the covenant. Micah 7:14. Feed thy people with thy rod. So feed the people with we know the rod represents the teaching, the authority, the shepherd's staff. Feed my people with my teachings. Feed my people with my authority. The flock of my inheritance which dwell in solidarity in the woods in the midst of Carmel. Let them that feed in Bashan and Galam in the days of old. That's another book of the prophets. I'm telling you, the prophets. Ooh, why my camera acting like that? Oh well. Okay. So yeah. So again, understanding the whole this sign and wonder about the staff turning into a snake and eating the other snakes is so powerful. But again, they were blind; they couldn't see it. And I did say who's going to end. It's like almost 8:30. But I just do a pulse check. If y'all want to keep going, we can finish out chapter 7 because it's kind of just a repeat of all the plagues. Or we can just wait till next week because it's we got a lot here. What y'all feeling? What y'all think?
I say we hold off, sis. Give yourself some time to rest and to restore. Why not? Thank you for your time. It's been beautiful. You've given us a lot tonight that you want. If that ain't enough, then look, something wrong with us. And I don't think nothing wrong with the group ahead. I'm speaking for myself, but I guess I'm sure y'all.
No, she did some heavy lifting tonight, Isha.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
That thing was good, girl.
It's always good.
That
girl got that fire.
That was a heavy lifting tonight, boy. She said last week she was ready. She was fired up. She came off the road to try to give us a little snippet.
I'm about to mess with it. You know, they say the little people be the strongest ones. So
that's right.
For those of y'all who don't know me in person, who haven't seen me, I'm 4'11". So I'm 4'11". So that's why I was making jokes about my size. Like, she little, but she got that fire. Like, yeah, I'm 4'11 and a half. So
I'm a big homie compared to you.
My sister is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, they say big things come in small packages, y'all. So
that's right.
I just wanted to
all
welcome
praise to Yah.
Hallelujah. I wanted to welcome our new sister. I'm so grateful she was able to make it tonight. Sis, we are a community of sisters who we want to encourage, or we just want to be here to encourage you, to pray with you. If you don't mind, we have an Instagram chat that we have on Instagram, and we just use it to just like stay connected. We have prayer requests throughout the week. We try not to have like too many heavy questions in there, and I need to reiterate that because people have been asking some heavy questions lately in the chat, and we try to save those for the call so we can address it like verbally. But that's just a place for us to like stay connected, and just like share encouraging words throughout the week and stuff as we prepare to meet again every Friday. But yeah, if you would like, I'm gonna stop the recording.